Hey everyone, welcome to Roman Just Codes. I am Roman, and in this video of the series, we'll be dealing with the application's theme in a very simple way. We will be triggering a change to our app's theme through Riverpod and responding to a change on our system's configured theme via Riverpod as well. Give your users the power of choice. So again, in this video, we will tackle how to implement dynamic theme switching in your Flutter application using Riverpod. So we will create a state provider for our theme, we will listen to changes on that provider, and update the entire app's appearance with a single tap. We will explore different theming approaches, continue leveraging Riverpod's state management capabilities, and build apps that are both beautiful and customizable. Now get ready to impress your users with a polished and professional touch. Now, as a reminder, if you end up liking this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can get notified of more Flutter content coming my way. Thank you so much for your support. So with that, let's get started. All right, y'all. In the previous video, we were able to mock the data, so now we can continue our development in a more streamlined way. Remember, we have this interactive map of the Dominican Republic. We can check the provinces on and off. You can check the regions and whatnot, and you can check the features of the map. That way, you can see them interactively. You can use the interactive viewer approach of just like using the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. So it's coming out really well. Now we're ready to customize it a little more and actually implement the application's theme. So instead of just being like this theme forever, we want to change it according to the system configured theme, or the user can just on demand, they can just change it between light and dark as they see fit. So let's start. The way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to create a folder here within libs. I'm going to call it styles. And then within that is, where you create maybe all your colors, all your themes and whatnot. I'm going to create a file called themes.dart. And that way, I'm going to encapsulate both of my light and dark theme data in here. I can consume like custom colors and whatnot, whatever I want to do, and I'll overwrite it right here. So I'm going to start by creating a class called map_app_theme. And I'm just going to have two values. I'm going to have a static theme data, because the theme data is actually that class that encapsulates all the theme. And then you can use your material design. You can override all the custom themes that you have in there for a material application in this particular case. And then I'm going to have one called light theme. And then I'm going to overwrite some of the theme data values that I'm interested about and that I want to use within my application. Of course, I'm going to use one for the dark as well. I can be, very specific, and then I can just dictate, specify directly that this is going to be a light theme and that this will be the dark theme. And then what I'm going to bring into the theme data is, for example, I'm going to be overwriting some of the icons, the text themes, how I want all the text to look like, how I want all the lists to behave, all the checkboxes, all the radio buttons, all the switch buttons and whatnot. So for example, I'm going to start with my color scheme. The color scheme is another object that you populate like with a bunch of values. I want to use some of these values like surface container, primary container. They have a bunch of values that you can overwrite. In this particular case, this is what I want to overwrite. And I'm going to, everywhere where you saw that I overrode the color, I am going to be pulling the information from the theme and consuming it accordingly. I already have the color scheme. I want all my icons, let's say in my light theme, to be black. So I say icon theme and I override the icon theme data. I set the color to be black. That means all my icons, I want them black. For the text theme, I want all the text, headline small, the ones that I'm mainly using are black. I want them all black. The list style theme, remember, we're using the list style theme for both the map assets and the provinces. I want them all black as well. I'm using also checkboxes, remember, on both sides. So I want the checkbox theme to be, again, all the checks, the check, I want it black. The side, I want it black. And I want the overlay and the fill color to be white and light gray accordingly. Also, we're going to remember, we're using the radio buttons. The radio buttons, I want the radio theme to be like the overlay to be gray, but the fill to be black. And the switch, we're going to be using the switch button in a minute when we use the switching between the themes and also the language. We're going to be using a switch. So I want them all black as well. That is for my light theme. For my dark theme, I want all of this information as well. I'm just going to grab all of that and paste it right down here. That way you can see it. So I have like some purple colors for the checkboxes, like the icon theme. I want it in one particular theme. I want it like in one particular way. So I don't want to adopt like whatever I just got inherited from the material design. I want to create my own theme, and this is the way that you do it. You override the corresponding corresponding themes. You have all those color scheme, text theme, list style theme, elevated button theme, text button themes, all of that. And you can override it based on your own branding and let's say color palette. So you see, I defined both of my light theme and dark theme in this particular class called map app theme. And now I can consume it within my application right here. So in the material app, you can overwrite some of those values with that information that I just created. So in your main application, you can just do this. You can say theme, and then you can bring your map app theme, and then you can say dot light theme. The theme is kind of like your main theme. What is your main theme? It's usually the light theme. So if you see there, why? Because there is an additional property called dark theme, and that is how you provide the dark theme version of your theme. So you already have theme. They don't call it light theme. They just call it theme. And then now you just assign the dark theme property to the dark theme. If you reload the application, you will see that it's still showing a little wacky for me and whatnot, but I'm gonna define those values appropriately. It's just that I haven't overwritten those the way that I'm supposed to. But you see there how the default theme is still kicking in, right? So if I wanna, let's say while I'm developing and I wanna work with one specific theme, I can do this. I can say theme mode, and then I can just say theme mode.system if I want to pick it, if I want to pick the value from the system. For example, like in this particular case, you will see something like that, but then I can say theme mode.dark. If it's, for example, I want to work with the dark theme. And then if I say light, of course, it's because there's a bunch of values that are still overwritten. This is the actual light theme, and you will see that it looks more like the original one, which is what I want. The dark theme is what we're going to change now. So remember, I set up all my properties in the light theme or dark theme. Now I'm going to pull and I'm going to start overwriting and doing some refactoring in the places where I want that to be reflected. So let's start with the main page, like the DR map. You remember how we use this as the background color in our map? The way that we want to do it is I want to pull it from the color scheme, and I want to use the surface container. So from my light theme, I want to use the surface container, and for the dark theme, I want to use this surface container, which is what I want. So I'm going to go back again to the main application. I'm going to switch it to dark. I'm going to go back to the map, and instead of doing this, I'm going to say final color scheme, theme that of context color scheme. And what this is doing is, depending on the theme that I have set in the application, I'm going to receive the corresponding color scheme. So instead of hard coding this value here, I'm going to say color scheme dot surface container. Now check this out. If I reload, now the background is actually the way that I want it to look. If it's in the dark mode, still the information is still not showing accordingly, but I'm going to be switching that little by little. If I switch it back to the light theme, then you see how now the light theme is actually showing that light blue that is there in the surface container. So let's go back again to the dark theme and continue replacing some of those values. So I'm going to reload. I'm going to show you, it shows the dark value. Now let's continue working on the backgrounds of those containers. Remember, I was using some values for those containers. So let's start with the left-hand side with the assets list. Instead of using a white for that color, for that container, I'm going to go to widgets, and I'm going to go to the map assets list. Instead of saying color right here, I'm going to say final color scheme, theme that of context dot color scheme. And then I'm going to, instead of using white, I'm going to say color scheme. And then I'm using the primary container. I think I'm using the same thing for the regions list. Let's take a look, and I can just copy paste it right away. So I don't have the color scheme, so I'm going to copy the color scheme from the map assets. I'm going to bring it into my regions, and the regions label is also the same thing. So I'm going to do the primary container. So instead of white, I'm going to say color scheme primary container. Let's take a look. If I reload, this is still in the dark theme, Perfect. This is looking exactly the way that I want it. Oh, look, the checkboxes, the radio buttons are actually working exactly the way that I want. These are actually also the way that I expected on the dark version. Let's change the provinces, and I think it's exactly the same thing. I didn't make any changes whatsoever in that at all because I wanted to keep it consistent. So in the all provinces list, I'll do the same thing. I'll bring the color scheme, and instead of white, I'm going to say color scheme primary container. If I reload that in the dark theme, all looks exactly like I'm expected, and there it is. You see, all looks perfect. Now, if you see in the design, I want to switch on some of those things that I did on my Figma. So you see the dark version looks like that. It doesn't look like that, like it shows the colors or the background. If all of them are unchecked, this is still like white, like dark, light. I want to show it like that. So let's go back and pick the values from the color scheme that we decided that are going to be part of the map when it's in dark mode. Let's go back, and I'm going to go to the map. So let's go straight to the map, and you see right here, there's a couple of things that we still need to change, right? So in the actual map, I'm going to, for example, like the color scheme that we're using. So what we're saying is, depending on whether the theme is in one way or another, I want the color to be in one way. So instead of being this the default color, I'm gonna say theme dot of context color scheme, and then instead of being this color, I'm gonna say on surface. I think that is the color that I picked for that. Let me actually bring this up a little higher because I may need it in other places. So final color scheme, and bring this up like this, and just use the color scheme right here. Perfect. So now I'm saying the background of the map in dark mode is not going to look, yeah, there it is. That's exactly what I want it to look like. If you still select these are still showing the colors. I want it to look in one specific color for the dark theme. So let's change that as well. So what I'm saying here is, if the theme dot of context, right? The brightness, I have to say, if the brightness is the light one, the light version, the brightness is the light, then you apply this like random color that I created. Otherwise, I want to pull one specific value from the color scheme, which I'm calling color scheme, which is only used for the dark color. It's called tertiary container. So tertiary container, I'm only using it for the dark theme for when the provinces are selected. So if I reload, and now I'm going to try to select, see, even the indicator is changing that. So if I do that, see, this is exactly what I wanted to look like when they were all selected. And then let's say if I select the region, I still want it green, that's okay. But if I select the provinces, I want them to be like that purple. So that's exactly what I wanted it to do. I uncheck and check and uncheck all of them. And I think I'm liking the way that this is coming out. There are other things that I want to change the colors of. For example, if you see the labels are still black, I want to show them as white. But remember, this is actually an SVG. So you still want to change the color from the theme, you can do so. So for example, these don't have any colors yet. I want to actually use the same color from, if you go back over, they still have the original colors right here, like the islands, right? The little islands already have the colors, and I want to change the color to the labels. So the way that you do that is, for example, starting from the base, I want to keep the base the same way it is, but the islands, I want them to be the same color as the background, right? As the theme. So I have to say here, color filter that mode, using the on surface color instead. So I'm going to be using the on surface color for all of the islands. I'm going to copy this for the 3 islands. And this one as well. Now the islands are going to match in color as I switch my theme, right? I also want to change it, like I said, for the labels. So how do I do that? So if I go back here to the labels, like the assets, I know which one is which. So I want to change the color also on this asset right here. So if, depending on the type of asset, if the asset is actually either the C's or the names, I want to do that, right? So let me copy this right here because I want to do this particular logic. So final C or names, I'm gonna do like that. Like if it's C or names, you want to change the let's say the label, otherwise that. The same thing with the color. So I'm gonna say final, let's say asset color, and I'm gonna say if it's that, then you're gonna use one particular color or pick another color instead. So I'm gonna say either or, then you do color scheme dot surface tint. I think I use that for like the labels, surface tint. And then what I'm gonna do here is not the province color, of course. It's either this, the surface tint, or no. So I'm gonna replace it with that. So here I'm saying, if it's the C, the name of the C's or the name of the labels, bring me the surface tint color. Otherwise, just keep it the same way that it was, meaning the black. I had it a little twisted. And then all I need to do here is in the asset, just apply the color right here. Color filter, and then I say asset color like this. So now let's see if now, depending on the asset, if it's the C, the labels of the C's or the label of the provinces, then it's gonna display correct. There it is. So now they show white when they are in that theme. If I flip the theme when I get to that point, we should be able to see it like that. But I'm gonna flip it manually right now. So let's go to the main, and instead I go to the main.dart and flip it to light. Now they should all display exactly the way it is, the way it was before, no changes whatsoever. I flip it back to dark, and then it's all good and it looks nice. So now let's focus on actually toggling the theme, because you want to do it programmatically. You just don't want to do it manually like this. You also want to be able to listen to when the user changes it in the system. Let's say in my Mac, if I change the theme at the system level, you want to be able to pick up those changes. So let's do that. Let's focus on that. Let's create that particular widget that will allow us to toggle the theme from light to dark. So as always, you want to rely on Riverpod to hold the state of the current theme selected by the user, or the theme that is actually inherited by the system. So you want to do that, and you want to encapsulate that inside of a provider. So how do you do that? So let's go back again exactly the same way that we've done everything. We're going to go and create a provider that handles this specific value. So we're going to go to the map providers. And in the map providers, we're going to be creating that specific value. So I'm going to create it all the way at the bottom. So exactly, I want to create something that changes that theme mode from dark to light, or even inherited from the system. So exactly the same thing. I'm going to be creating a Riverpod provider. I'm going to create a class called AppTheme. And then I'm going to do the same dance right here. I have to do extends AppTheme, right? And of course, is going to be inheriting. And of course, I'm going to override a theme mode property. Of course, you need to override the build method. And what I'm going to return by default, because this is also an enum, I'm going to say theme mode dot system. And then, of course, as before, I create a very convenient method to update the theme programmatically via this method. So this is just a utility helper method to mutate the state. So now that you know what the app theme is and the default, now you can start consuming this somewhere. But at least this is the way that you're going to trigger the change, right? So you're going to be inheriting and reading it from Riverpod. Why don't we hook it up right from the beginning? You go to the main.dart, of course, and you see that the main is already a consumer. So you can already read, for example, what is the application's theme. So right here, I'm going to say final app theme ref.watch app theme provider. Instead of hard coding the theme mode.dark, you know already what to do. You're just going to provide the app's theme, the app theme value, which is watching for that. So if I could change it from anywhere, and it's going to rebuild the whole application applying that value. So if I reload it, you see that the value is actually system, because my system is actually dark. If I change it to light, it will actually pick up the light one. But by default, my value, my system is the dark theme. So it already pulls up the theme system, the theme mode system, because that is the default. As you see right here, theme mode, that system, right? If I already say by default is going to be the light one, when I reload my application, if the default is light, is going to be the light one. Okay, so now let's create that widget. Let me show you the Figma file and exactly how we're going to be building it. So we want to create a little toggle which has a little moon and a little sun right next to it. And this is what is going to be like switching the value back and forth. It's going to either be light or it's going to be dark. Let's try to create that. So let's create another widget. I'm going to go the same procedure. We're going to go to our widgets folder, and I'm going to be creating a widget. So that widget, I'm going to call it AppThemeSwitch or something like that. So let me say AppThemeSwitch.dart and create the same thing, AppThemeSwitch. You can create a placeholder for now, and then this is app theme, right? Let me import it, import the material. And where do I want to place this? I want to place this, let's say at the lower left corner, right? So we already have everything hooked up. So all we need to do is just grab another one of these. And then I'm just going to say bottom left, right? So I can say app theme switch bottom left. And then if I reload it, we should be able to see something called AppThemeSwitch on the left-hand side right here on the bottom left. So it says AppThemeSwitch. We still need to change, of course, some of the properties. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's flesh it out right now. I'm going to go to my AppThemeSwitch, and this is going to be a simple one. So don't fret. I'm going to, of course, convert it to a consumer widget because I want to be reading the changes as well. So consumer widget, and I am going to inject the widget ref. Instead of a container, because I'm going to keep it simple, I'm going to make it into a padding widget. I could have used a container, but I kind of efficiently like to use more a padding if I just want to do padding. Let's make it a little thicker, 32 of the padding. The row, remember the location and the way that the layout looks, it actually looks like this. So it looks like a row. So it's a row, one icon, a switch button, and then another icon. So let's do it exactly like that. So I'm going to create a row instead of a text. So I'm going to do row. I want to do maybe no spacing. I think that's all good. So I'm going to do as the children of that row, I'm going to do an icon. Remember, all my icons for both light and dark theme have been overwritten in terms of color. So they will all be black for the light theme. So I'll just have to say icons.light mode. There's even a convenient icon for that. I'm going to do a switch button. Where I'm going to be showing the corresponding value from what I read from my provider. And then I'm going to do another icon right here. Of course, there it is. It already populates the dark mode. So the switch, the value of the switch will actually be reading from the app theme provider. So final app theme ref.watch app theme provider. And the value will be if the app theme equals theme mode.dark. If it's the dark, it's gonna go to the right. That's the true when it's true, right? So by default, it's gonna be true if it's on the dark. Otherwise, it's gonna show to the left. It's gonna show like that. And then the unchanged, you're gonna pass the value, whatever value that is. So you're gonna say, ref.read. We're gonna update that app theme. So you're gonna say app theme provider. And then you update. If it's true, is dark, but if it's false, is going to be light. So let's try that. I'm going to save right now. I'm going to save the changes, reload my application, and let's see if it's coming up. So if by default it says it's light, and then if I click it, it should show to the dark mode. So if I click, there it is, dark mode. If I click it again, it's light mode. If I click it again, dark. If I click it again, light. Remember, if I reload my application, it's not persisting these values. So it's still thinking that the default is the light. We want to pick up the value that is from the system. We're not persisting locally. For example, that is maybe another topic or another video where you can maybe store it in your local storage in the browser, or you can store it in your shared preferences if you're building like a mobile application. But in this particular case, what I want to do is my app theme, I don't want to be the default. I don't want it light. I want it system. Still, if I reload, For example, if I reload that, you see that in this particular case, the switch is still pointing to the light. It should have picked up that my system, it is correctly displaying on the application. It is picking up that the system is actually the dark mode, so it's displaying it in the dark mode, but the switch is still pointing to the light. It should have been pointing here. So we want to match the state from the system and update our application's state. How do you do that? Let me show you how you can do that. So it's very straightforward. It's a little bit of maneuvering, but it's easy to do. Let's go back to the code. And one of the things that you need to do is you need to listen for the changes and the system value as it changes as well. So you want to change, you want to listen to the changes by the system and update the value of your Riverpod state accordingly. And also when you reload it, you want it to pick up, whatever that was, and you want it to persist accordingly. Not locally, but at least you want it to reflect in the application. So let me show you how to do that. So one of the things that I like to do, you have to actually listen to certain events of your application. The way that you do it, you use the widget bindings observer. You do that at the application level. So I'm going to go all the way to my main application. And the way that you do it is you actually convert this application into, instead of a consumer widget, you actually have to convert it to a consumer stateful widget because you need to incorporate those elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this DR main app into a consumer stateful widget. I can do this consumer stateful widget, and then I say class DR main app state extends consumer state, and then I do DR main app, right? And then here, of course, you need to override the DR main app state, create state, and then you do DR main app state, this one. There you go. So now that you converted it, of course, because this is a consumer stateful widget, you don't get the widget ref injected into it. You're already inherited because you're a consumer stateful widget. And now you say with widget bindings observer. So you do the widget bindings observer, you actually tap into some callbacks. Let's say you want to intercept some of the life cycles of the application. You want to, for example, get the instance of that. You want to receive notifications when the frames get completed and whatnot. So in this case, the way that we're going to do it is we're going to listen for, we're going to add ourselves as an observer, first of all. And for that, you need to override the init state because that's only created once. And you only want to do it once and only once, as opposed to every time that you build a widget. So you first, in the init state, you override the init state. You add yourself as an observer, and then you do widgets binding. You can do it in the add post frame callback. But then in this particular case, what I want to do is I want to update the theme accordingly. At the end of the frame, when the widget gets painted, I want to tag a callback so I can execute it in a safe way. So I'm going to create a method called update app theme. And all I do in this method is this. I pick up whatever the brightness or the theme of the platform is. The way that you do it, you say this, brightness, and then you say view.off context, platform dispatcher, and then you say platform brightness. This is how you pick up the brightness of the platform. And then after that, because this is of course, it's already giving me the hint, because this is a consumer stateful widget, you can update the value of your theme accordingly based on that. Now, when you're in the add post frame callback, you can just do this, update app theme, right? You may need to schedule this in the event loop because you want it to happen. You don't want it to collide with the painting of the application. So you want to do it like that. Let's now save. Let's reload the application. And now you should be able to see, for example, here, now when I reload it, it actually picked up that it's actually in the dark theme. If I, for example, kill the application and then I start it from the beginning, you remember that the default value of the theme is actually system, it's not dark. But because the system theme is dark, this is why we do this mapping. So we change, if the brightness is dark, then the theme mode is dark. Otherwise, the brightness is light. So that is now when you reload and you handle that, now it is correct. Now you can switch it back and forth. You see, you can do this, but because I did that, assign myself as an observer, you need to remove yourself to be an observer for performance optimization so that you can avoid memory leaks and whatnot. But if you reload it again, you will see that it should be able to pick up the default one, the default theme, and correctly show the state of the switch, right? So now if I come over here, a good practice is actually do this. You override the dispose. So you do void dispose, and in the dispose method of this consumer stateful widget, you say widgets binding, remove observer, and then you dispose of that. You can override this particular method called did change platform brightness, and right in there you can just call super did change platform brightness. And now what does this do? Now let me show you what this actually does right here. This is actually listening for the platform changes as you do it in real time. Let me show you. So here I am. Let's rebuild our application. Look at the icon showing correctly. Now if I bring up my system settings from my Mac and then I switch it between dark and light, if I switch it to light, you see how now the application switched to light, but the value, the Riverpod provider also changed to light. If I switch it back to dark, the application also switches to dark and the value also switches to dark. So this is the kind of setup that you need to establish. This is to listen for the platform brightness, and as you receive those changes, you change the app's theme. And this is for when you want to pick it up, when you load the application for the first time, you want to grab those values. And as your application launches for the first time, you want to capture the value from the system and you want to update your application accordingly. Not only your application so that it picks up the correct theme, but you also want to change the state and you want your application to reflect the correct state, the state of the application, and you want your UI to reflect that as well. So without further ado, I just wanted to show you now the full application now running. Of course, we need to go into the next topic, which is implementing localization. But up to now, we have everything set up correctly. We have our theme, we have our Riverpod states, changing the provinces that we want to display. We want to show the pieces on the map assets that we want to display. We can switch the theme back and forth with no issues. I can reload the application and I can pick up the system theme and I can display it accordingly. You can go much further with this and you can even create it so that you can store your application's stored theme, saved theme. You can store it like in local storage using shared preferences. You can use any other methods, but this is it, guys. This is pretty good. I love the way that we're making so much progress with this application. And now catch me on the next video where we're actually going to wrap this up by implementing localization, where we turn all of this from English to Spanish and vice versa, and you can make your application speak to your users in the language of their choice. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Hey everyone, I'm Roman. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on other Flutter content coming my way. Thank you so much for your support. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media.